Very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Samrat from Euraxess India, and it's a great pleasure for us to bring you an exciting, entertaining afternoon online webinar with the topic science communication, how to communicate your research out of the lab. This is something which we've been doing since many years in collaboration with our guest speakers from TIFR Mumbai and also with former slammers who have been helping us to create this webinar series for you. And it's basically about like how to translate the excellent research you're doing into words, text, visuals that can address your research and reach out to a non-expert audience or to funding agencies or to industry or to people who just, you want to convince about your research. So this is today really about how to communicate. We will give you a lot of insights and tips. We have some very great speakers with us who will be happy to share their knowledge and experience. And we will also introduce to you, for those who don't know, a very interesting competition which we do every year here at Euraxess, which is called the Euraxess SciComm India. It's about how to communicate your research in an entertaining but scientific way to a larger international audience. And without any further delay, let me welcome our guest speakers today. I start with the top left, which I see from my screen. This is Professor Arnab Bhattacharya. He's the director at the Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education in Mumbai, but also he's a professor at TFR Mumbai as well. And Arnab has been a moderator and collaborator with Euraxess and the Science Slam and Science Communication webinar series for many years. So very warm welcome to you, Arnab. Thanks for joining us. And I next go down in my screen, and here I find Amanda Diaz-Fernandez. She's the Knowledge Transfer Officer at CERN, and she has agreed today to talk to us a bit how to communicate your science, your research to the industry and beyond. So very good noon to you, Amanda. You're joining us from Geneva, right?
Yes, just before lunch here.
Just before lunch.
Yeah.
And just very close to you, not only virtually, but also geographically, we have Priyanka Dasgupta. She's, our main pillar when it comes to the Science Slam. She's been a Science Slam winner herself. She's a science communicator professionally, and she's at the moment based in Geneva. And she will also introduce herself a bit more to you later. And she will talk about, science communication as a professional career path, but also she will give those who are interested in the Science Slam, she will give some insights how to create an exciting video and submit it to us. Hi, Priyanka, nice to have you with us.
Glad to be here again. Thanks.
Yeah. And last but not least, on my screen, I have Sarbajit Dutta. She's a Science Slammer. In the past, he has participated in the Science Slam and has been a finalist of last year's Science Slam. He's currently in Paris, where he's doing a PhD at the École Polytechnique in Paris. A very good noon to you, Sarbajit. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to hearing from you about your experience with the Science Slam and what tips you can give to our audience today.
Thank you, Samrat. Thank you so much.
Okay, so this is the great lineup we have for you today, and let's start with Arnab. Please tell us a bit about how science can be more fun and entertaining, and what is it about the Science Slam? Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. And I should also introduce Samrat himself, which he forgot to do. Samrat is the real coordinator of this at the Euraxess office in Delhi, where he keeps all of us, and make sure that this event happens year after year. So I'm going to be telling you a little bit about not just the Science Slam, of course, mostly about it, but how to take research out of the lab in a fun manner where you can really communicate what you're doing. And wait, I just need to hide this. Okay. So, of course, we are now in the 11th year of this, and I would say that finally all is well. We are back to our usual format of having a live audience and the live finals, which will be in Kolkata later this year. Of course, this science communication workshop is still online, but whether you're online, whether you're in person, the basic principles are the same. And of course, people will watch the video online. So, we want to, what we want to do today is to figure out how do we get the excitement of what we are doing to a non-specialist audience and in a fun manner. And of course, a lot of this is just pure common sense, but maybe it's worth repeating some of these things. So me, Samrat has already told you something about me. I'm a scientist. I work on semiconductors. I'm a tinkerer. I like to open up stuff and do things. And I like to talk about science. I've been running something called Chai and Why for the last 15 years. And I've been with Euraxess for now almost 10 years now in various capacities. And especially with the Science Communication Workshop, where we will, of course, talk about things beyond the Science Slam as well. So if you're going to be falling asleep after noon here or in, around noon in Europe, wherever you are watching from, let me just summarize the talk and give you my one slide takeaway. If you want to know about by the way, I hope you can hear me and see things and all that stuff. Please let me know, because otherwise the problem with the online thing is there's very little feedback from people. The main thing is understand the strategy, structure, and the style of what you're going to talk about. So in this, what really matters is understand why are we communicating. We might have the same piece of work that we want to talk about. It could be a PhD defense as a student. It could be at a conference where you're trying to develop collaborations. It might be at Science Slam when you're trying to dance about and win the prize for doing it in a fun way. It might be talking to a newspaper. So every time the purpose of communication is different, and hence you need to tell a slightly different story. But it's important to tell a story, because as human beings, we don't like to listen to data. We like to listen to stories, right? Remember when all of us were kids, our parents, our family members, our siblings, they told us stories. You want to listen to a cool story. And if you can do that, if you have what I call a logically compelling story where you have a nice thread that runs through it, the rest of it is much easier. And finally, of course, especially for a platform like a Science Slam, it's a very good thing to have what is called controlled enthusiasm. You don't want to be, you don't want to be sounding like a block of wood who is going to be giving you a talk about something that I have done in the lab over the last 5 years, in which I will tell you about what I have done. You will put people to sleep. On the other hand, you are not a politician giving a speech who's going to be, jumping about the place. So somewhere in the middle of this, you need to do. For spoken communication is very easy. Writing is very different, whether you're writing a paper, or you're writing for a journal, or you're writing a thesis, you're writing a popular blog or something else. So writing is much more complex. Samrat, can you just pin my video or whatever it's called? It's called something, so that everybody can see the speaker video.
Sure.
Okay. Right. Now, any communication system developed by Shannon has a very simple idea. There's a sender, there's a medium, there's a receiver. Anything, whether it's animals, political communication, formal, informal, you just have to identify who is a sender, who's the medium, who's a receiver. In our case, if you are mostly probably in the science field, writing papers, you're an author, there's a reader, in the middle, there's a journal article. If you're a PhD student, you're going to be defending your thesis. So there's a dissertation in the middle, there's a committee that's evaluating you. And today for the Science Slam, you are an enthusiastic presenter. There is a public audience who are not necessarily scientists, and you are going to be presenting this 10-minute slam. And the whole focus of it is, how do I make this medium more effective in this little thing? Now, whenever you're presenting scientific results, there are a lot of things. You'll get a copy of these slides. Samrat will send them to you, so don't worry if taking notes. But you have to worry about why are you presenting, how are you presenting, what is the big picture. Often people forget that they're not experts. You need to tell them what is the background about it, and you keep doing this. You will polish it, refine it, etc. This is what we will do. And science, unfortunately, we don't do it in isolation. We have to talk about our work. This takes many forms. Formal, you have reports, journals, book chapters. You go to conferences, you talk, you go for a job talk. And today there are, of course, many informal ways. You can have your blog, you can make videos for YouTube, and you can do a Science Slam. So we're going to look mostly at the spoken part today. And the writing part, I'm just going to summarize in one slide, which is simply that when you write, and this is especially for students and all who will be writing papers for journals, you have no idea who's going to read your work. You are writing for an unknown reader who does not give you feedback on your writing. This is very different than writing a blog where people can like it and share it and things like this, okay? But of course, you want your work to be published. Similarly, even if it's informal, you want your work to be shared. So people will cite it, which is why the more friendlier your writing is, the easier it is. And all these informal presentations that we do eventually help you to understand your own work better and even write better. So it's a good thing. Now, okay. So let's say that you'll wake up 2 days before, or 1 day before your most important talk in your life. What do you do? First thing, figure out 3 things. What are the things I must say? Whether they give me 30 seconds or they give me 3 minutes or they give me 30 minutes, these are the points I absolutely must say. Also, depending on time, there are things that I would like to say. I may not have the time to say all them, but I would like to say. And there are some things that I will not say. I will not get into the details of the mirrors and how they were arranged. I will not get into details of all the reagents and where we got them from. So depending on your work, there will be something which you will not say. There are things that you must say, and there are things that you would like to say. This will help you figure out the priority of what you need to talk about. Always know your audience. Remember that you may be the last speaker at the conference on the Friday of the thing. They might be tired. They can read, which means whatever you put up on the screen, your slides or whatever they are, they would have read it before you start talking about them. Often in conferences, people hand out abstracts. People, may have read them, but don't assume people have read them. They are thinking, why should I listen to this person presenting a talk? What is there? I could be checking my WhatsApp. I can go and check my email. I can do so many things. If they are not experts, within 2 minutes, they will switch off. So you have to grab them quick. If they're experts, you're lucky. They'll listen to you a little bit more time, but even they will switch off in a few minutes, which means your beginning is very, very crucial. Okay. So the first 2 minutes, before you even start your talk, there's a lot of things that people are evaluating. The previous speaker may have been very boring and put them to sleep, or the previous speaker may have had some wow results and totally woken them up and they're still thinking about that. They're looking at what template do you have on your screen. They're looking at how many you have the names of 20 different collaborators and 35 logos and whatever else on your first slide. They're looking, are you fumbling with the mic? So a lot of things, are you comfortable with the laser pointer? Your overall, do you appear confident? There are lots of things that go in even before you start speaking a word. Okay. And my simple suggestion is this: never ever read the title of your talk, because whoever is going to invite you to give the talk will read that title. So if you just say it again, you're not adding value. So the next talk in this conference is going to be given by Professor Arnab Bhattacharya, who will talk about monolithic phase-locked anti-guided arrays of diode lasers. Now you come on stage and say that I will talk on monolithic anti-guided phase-locked arrays of diode lasers. You've not, you wasted 30 seconds. You've not said anything. What you need to do is paraphrase it. Say, hi, you've heard a lot of talk about lasers in this conference, but I'm going to tell you something different. I'm going to tell you about arrays of lasers. We're combining 40 of them together in a phase-locked manner. Right? I've said effectively the same thing, but I haven't read out the title. Okay. You do not have to get across everything you've done. Focus on getting a few points across. Keep it short and simple. Tell them that I'm going to tell you about this today. Tell them, and at the end of it, remind them that this is what I've told you about today. That is probably the thing to talk about. And most talks will end like this. Thank you. There's so many times you'd have seen thank you and maybe a bunch of flowers and all. You need this thank you slide. Otherwise, people don't know when to clap. Other people have to wake up who fell asleep. You need the thank you slide. But I'm from Mumbai. It's a place where real estate is very expensive. Remember that this slide stays on screen until somebody asks you a question and you move away. This is a waste of real estate. So never end with only a thank you slide. This slide can have at least some information on it, a summary of your talk, your website, some cool picture, if nothing else. Don't end with acknowledgements. You need to encourage questions. You can say that, oh, I have, whatever. I have a position for a postdoc. That's what I do in these days, So use the space on the last slide. Don't just put a thank you on it. Now, especially in the online world, it's very important that it's clear what you have thing. Remember that people are often going to be watching your presentation on this thing on a mobile phone. So it must be clear for them. So, you need to have an appropriate font. There are some very clean font families these days, especially designed for online presentations, Seago, Roboto, etc. Use sufficiently large lettering, otherwise people will not be able to read it. And don't artificially try to play with colors too much, and make sure there's contrast and all this stuff. Don't ever show a figure and says, I know you can't see this, but don't show that. If I can't see that, why are you showing it to me? Okay. And this is one of my pet peeves. I hate it when people do this, right? People always do this. They always do this. They show a lot of data, but they never label the axis. You should always label your axis. Okay. And then people go haywire with animations. I don't know why things like PowerPoint and Keynote and all allow you to do all this kind of fancy animations. Animations go too far. You can use it just once, appear. That's the simple effect that you should use. It's not fancy, but just use it once and it will work. Okay, please do not try all the different things that PowerPoint do, and especially for online things, try and avoid them totally. Just avoid them totally. I did this just because I want to show you how bad it was. And remember, things will go wrong. Sometimes you've gone on stage, your time has started, but suddenly the slide fails. Be prepared for that. Be prepared for that. Okay. Always, if you're doing things, spell check, because people get very irritated when there are spelling mistakes. Those things just they just take their mind off from whatever beautiful stuff you may be presenting. And finally, there's an audience before you. Just imagine there's an audience, even if it's an online talk. I can't see all of you, but I'm imagining you're there. I'm trying to look at you. I'm trying to connect with you. They should feel that there is a live human being out there who wants to talk to them, right? That I think is very important. And always stick to your time. Practice your talk. Every slide presentation software today has things which will tell you individual slide timings. You know where you're spending a lot of time or where you're not spending time. Do that. Now, in the online world, most people use these mobile phones, which are, the long things. So use the 16:9 widescreen aspect. It's much better. Do not fill the slide, because if people are watching on YouTube or something, the speaker's video goes on the top right corner typically. So that place will get covered. Sometimes it's best to just use PDF, especially if you're going out somewhere, you don't know what computer they have. PDF is the best. It doesn't have animations, but it is something. Number your slides. It's easier for people to say, I had a question in slide 24, things like this. And once in a while, you can, if it's online, you can say that, okay, do you have questions? Please put it on the chat. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. If there's a problem, please let me know. So, it's good. That way they feel that, yes, the speaker is concerned about them. Now, for a science slam is short, it's fun, it's give you a wow experience. That's what you want to try to get. Okay. It's 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a very long time when you're on stage, but it's also a very short time. If you make mistakes, there's no chance for doing it again. It's not a talk. It's a slam. You can laugh, jump, dance, do whatever you want. And hence, how you enter the stage, this pre-evaluation before you start is very important. The title is very important, because that's what tells people that, oh, is this going to be something fun? Is this going to be something exciting? And remember, the experts do not judge you. It's the audience who judges you. And the Euraxess rules are 4 points. Accessibility, which means did people understand it? Conceptualization, which means how structured was it? Was that logical flow through it? How entertaining was it? And finally, how original or how creative was it? So this is what you need to worry about. Now, Priyanka is going to give you a very detailed thing about the video entry. Remember, we are going to judge the entries based on videos. Okay. But please do not give a PowerPoint presentation. It's a precursor to the live event. You can do whatever you want. Okay. It's not an item number, but still, don't forget the science totally. But you can show an experiment if you want. You can do anything. And don't worry too much about being high tech. Today's mobile phone cameras are fantastic. That's good enough. Just make sure it doesn't shake. Use a tripod. Okay. Most important thing is sound. If we can't hear you well, that's the end. Sound is the most important. Even lighting is not that important, but sound certainly. Okay. And don't put background music, fancy effects, etc. You're not a movie production house. We know this is, we are expecting people to talk about their science. We're not looking at how fancy the video is. Okay. Now, at the end of it, if you get selected for the live show, just remember, What is your message? What are you going to tell them? What do they want them to go home about? Even if they fall asleep, what do they, even in their sleep, they should get it. That is your key message. How will you capture their attention? How will you know that you've actually reached out to them? Maybe you can make it interactive. You can go up to the audience and say, okay, here, I want to ask you, do you know about this? Maybe can you tell me something, right? And just remember that people will ask you crazy questions. They are not going to ask you details of your experiment. They're not going to ask you details of your theory and all that. They will ask you fun stuff to try and on the spot and make you think. Okay, so you should watch previous science slams, look at some TED Talks, etc. You're not a stand-up comedian. We are all, basically practitioners of science. Make sure the science comes across. And the best way to do it is practice, 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 practice. Keep practicing. That's the only way you'll get it. Okay, so thank you. Well, I'm not supposed to end like this, so at least I will end like this. And let me say that today is actually a fantastic day to be doing the science communication workshop for many reasons. Today is World Mental Health Day, right? Mental health, a big issue in the world. And believe me, one of the best ways to ensure good mental health is to have fun doing what you're doing. You guys are doing science, have fun doing science, talk about your science in a fun way, laugh, dance, sing. Everything is fine. It helps your mental health. Today is also the birthday of a lot of very important scientists, starting off from Cavendish, of the Cavendish experiment, Cavendish of hydrogen, Cavendish of, the Cavendish labs, right? Cavendish was a very poor communicator. He was very shy. He used to hide. He even had a secret staircase at the back of his house so that he didn't have to meet anybody. He was a great scientist, but it was an extremely poor communicator. Times have changed. It's the birthday of so many other Nobel laureates. In chemistry, you have Yves Chauvin, you have Gerhard Erkel, people who told us very things about reactions, about why iron rusts, what happens on surfaces. You have people from the world of peace, Fritjof Nansen. I mean, he worked with refugees. So today is a great day. A lot of, very famous people born today and Mental Health Day. So with this, I hope I've been able to excite you about the fact that presenting science in a fun manner is good for you. All the best. Thank you. You're muted, Samrat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this inspiring presentation. And also the way you ended it was really like very, very, very inspirational and convincing that science, we have to see it also as a very fun and important part of our lives. So thank you so much, Arnab. And I would also like to invite all of you to address your questions to Arnab. Arnab, do you think we should take them now or should we wait towards the end of the webinar?
I think we'll take them all to the end. No?
We'll take them at the end, yeah?
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, you can write them now in the QA, or you can raise your hand at the end and we will also allow you to speak and ask your questions directly to the speakers. But now we move on to our next guest speaker, which is Amanda. She's joining us from Geneva. She works at CERN. And Amanda, you can tell us a bit about yourself, and floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring presentation. Now let's see how I do a presentation afterwards. And I'll let you know a little bit what I'm doing. Let me just share the screen. I'll tell you what I was doing a little bit before CERN, and then my job here at CERN and how communication is important in my job. So a little bit of my experience communicating to industry and generally in my job. So before coming here, I was studying material science at Imperial College London, and then I realized I didn't like working in the lab, so I decided to go to theory and simulation of materials just to make sure I would never enter a lab again. And so I did, and I was doing simulations of a drug molecule using a high-performance computer. And then during my PhD, it was very nice because I had the opportunity to, for a brief period of time, join two very different organizations. So for about 3-4 months, I was working at the UK Parliament in their science office. So they have a parliamentary office for science and technology. And that is really all about communication. So it's about they have a core team of 8 people working permanently and 8 PhD students that come for a short period of time. And during that period of time, you have to write a briefing about a topic that is understandable for a politician that you have to assume might not have studied science since school or not even in the last years of school. So that's the challenge. It has to be brief, it has to be clear, it has to be accurate, comprehensive, and easy to understand for the layperson. And I got the broad and complex topic of quantum technology, so that was my task, and I had a lot of fun working on it. Later, I was in the European Commission in the Research Infrastructure Unit. There I was doing some data analysis related to some projects they were funding, and I had the interesting experience of communicating then my research to the delegates of member states that work on that area. So people from ministries of the different countries that were coming every 6 months to learn about the progress of the Commission. So a little bit about things I was doing during my PhD. So it's quite theoretical, as I said, in simulations of materials, but they had extracurricular activities they encourage us to participate in. And one of them was organizing every 2 years what we call the Hermes Summer School on science communication, precisely. And it was inviting students from around the world for a few days and outside of London in a little castle that was hired to learn about material science modeling and also to communicate about certain topics of material science modeling. And this is the little video I, in fact, created. So itself was a bit of science communication. And the key message was, of course, that science plus communication is a success. Don't forget about the communication part. Then after that, as I was mentioning, I was in the British Parliament. So this is the first page of the briefing I had to make. And this was a very good experience of really distilling everything that could have been complex or unnecessary and giving the key messages of how does a technology work, what are the key elements, why is it relevant for the economy, why could it be relevant for society, why should you care about, and all this. So I had to summarize the whole of quantum technologies in 4 pages. And then, of course, that's to inform generally industrial strategy of decision making. This was an event they did, and then we also wrote a little blog about it. This experience at the Parliament, in the UK Parliament, I loved it. So I've always liked giving presentations, communicating, public speaking. So I wanted a job that involved a lot of communication, and I was lucky enough to come to CERN for my first job as a knowledge transfer officer, which indeed involves a lot of communication of in all ways and formats. So here at CERN, I'm working in the business development section at the knowledge transfer group. So this is a service that the organization offers. Yeah, is that we provide links with companies. I'll explain a little bit more about it later. But basically, I'm in charge of very broad area of technologies. I mean, all of us are. We're about 11 people in the team, but we have to cover the whole organization. So myself, I'm working in projects related to material science and the vacuum portfolio. And so far, that's me mainly for environmental applications. And that, again, is also broad. So we're talking about liquid hydrogen storage, future power grids with superconducting materials, or materials at cryogenic temperatures, for example, for fusion applications. That my second topic is quantum technology. So that's any certain technology that could be helpful, either maybe to build a quantum sensor, a quantum computer, quantum communications via satellite. So you name it. My job is to see if there's any know-how at CERN that could be useful for that. And finally, and lately, I'm working with a technology called White Rabbit, which is an open source technology that serves to create a common notion of time in an Ethernet network. So that is to synchronize, for example, sensors or data acquisition systems across a network to a very high precision, so a billionth of a second. And I'm working to set up a community around that. I'll tell you more about it. So it's very diverse. And our job is really to understand how can certain technologies be useful for companies and their innovation efforts. So in that sense, we're really the person creating the links and building the bridges. So we're really the middle person between many stakeholders. So sometimes I joke that we don't do any work ourselves. We just put together people, and then they have to do their bits and pieces. So then depending on who you're talking to, the communication is going to be different, right? So on the one hand, you might be talking to an external company or their CEO, which might still be quite technical if it's a startup or an engineer, and you're trying to explain to them the technology or the expertise CERN has, why it's unique, and why you think it could be valuable for them. So you always have to give them that little hint of why it could be useful to you, or make it very clear, I'm not sure how it can be useful to you, but you know a lot about what you need, so help me learn about your field. So tell them exactly what you're expecting from them. Or it might be the opposite. You're also talking to technical people, but for example, I might be reading the challenges of making a quantum computer, and I have to then go to the engineers here at CERN that are working at accelerating particles and don't know about quantum computers, and tell them why what they're doing is relevant for quantum computers. So I have to tell them a little bit how a quantum computer works and what's the link to what they do every day, which at first sight might not be related at all. So it's both the speaking to engineers, but slightly differently. Another aspect might be that we have to do regularly is speaking to our legal team, our lawyers. So that's once we've identified an opportunity and you have to actually start setting up a contract. The legal team jumps in. They have to feel ownership of the team, of the project, know exactly what the project is about. So you have to explain to somebody with no technical background, why is the technology relevant, why the company is suitable to exploit it, what is the outcome of the developments that could come out of it or not, what is the input of each party, because that's going to determine intellectual property. So at the end, the lawyer has to have a very good understanding of all the key information to draft that contract and give you their legal opinion in terms of IP or other terms. And for that, you are the person, is not the engineer. You are the person that has to make sure that the lawyer and your team understands very well what the project is about. So that again is a different type of communication. In general, there's also the format in which is not also only to who you communicate, but also how you're communicating, no? And there's many different ways we might be doing that. So something we do quite often is webinars, and that we might, for example, link with an innovation partner agency of a particular region or of a sector, and then say, please, can you invite, let's say, 50, 80 companies in this sector, and we are just going to give a presentation on Zoom, giving a big overview of either technologies or infrastructure at CERN that we think could be useful. So then again, that's presentation format. You're trying to be comprehensive and sufficiently detailed so that they can pick up aspects of the technology that might interest them, but at the same time, cover quite a lot and not kill them with detail. So finding that balance is quite delicate. And then the aim of that is obviously that then they will contact you and you would have a follow-up discussion, and that's more one-to-one. So just to give an example, I gave this year a webinar to about 80 companies in Germany about interested in manufacturing of electronics or this material science aspect, but applied to the electronic sector. Or we've given also in Germany, to webinars related to quantum technology application. There's another aspect, which is the meeting in person by going to conferences. This can be either having your own booth in which people are coming to you and you're always explaining the same thing with also crops, that you might have a little booklet, a little leaflet, or it might be really you going to to different booths. I have the dynamic that, so we were in Germany in June talking about quantum technologies. I was going from booth to booth explaining about our technologies. I was with a CEO of a very small startup. I explained the whole technology I wanted to pitch to them, and she got back to me saying, well, I'm not sure if I'm interested in the technology, let's explore, but if you want the job in my company, I really liked how you explained the technology. And I was like, well, didn't achieve my aim, but at least she thought it was a good explanation. And now, for example, this month, next week, I'm going to a conference to promote quantum technologies, and at the end of the month, another one for White-Rabbit. And it's also about the promotional material, so that you're giving, how you present the visual image, the posters, and so forth. Here, I put a little image of a workshop we had at CERN, a 2-day workshop. We had people from companies. I was explaining about the White-Rabbit collaboration that I'll tell you a little bit more about, giving an overview, trying to trigger the interest of companies. Just an example here is one of the engineers working on timing from Meta that was here at CERN to listen and see if they could be interested in this. And finally, another way in which we communicate with companies is by simply inviting them at CERN. We call this Discovery Days. It could be very broad or very targeted, and we've already identified an interest. And for that, obviously, it's all about establishing the personal relationship. So beyond communicating the content itself of the possible project you could set up. And as part of that, at CERN, we're very lucky because in a way, we're working also in a museum. That's the infrastructure itself. So we have many visit points that are accessible and can be visited. Most of them not by the general public, but if you're accompanied by a CERN guide. So as I said, I like science communication and generally just public speaking. So as soon as I could, I did all the training to become guide in different visit points at CERN. And that's obviously a very nice way to establish that link with companies, people from companies that are coming. So you would have the more professional targeted discussion, and then before or later you would take them to one of these tourist sites, and there it's again about communicating, but you're communicating about what is being done at that facility, in a way the beauty of the research that is being done, the outlook of what is being investigated. So what do we try to find out? What mysteries of the universe they are attempting to tackle, and so forth. And I very, very much enjoy guiding for every company I invite to CERN, and also for the companies of colleagues that come to CERN. They know I like the guiding, so they invite me to guide for their companies too. And this is just a very recent photo. We were visiting the antimatter factory, so creating anti-hydrogens. This was actually a group of students from an executive program in Paris, and I was telling them about the antimatter. So that's really pure science communication more than technology. Finally, I've mentioned a few times already White-Rabbit. This is one of the big projects I'm working on. It's open source technology that was developed at CERN more than 10 years ago. And it's to provide that synchronization over Ethernet switches. So here in the image at the back, you would have the different Ethernet switches, which are specifically adapted for this technology. So they see here, it says White-Rabbit. And the idea is that by the protocol you use and the firmware you have in the FPGAs, you're able to measure phase differences, which is what you're illustrating here in the pulses through the fiber optics. You're really going into the details of the phase differences, and that's what allows you to get a synchronization way below the pulse width, which is about 8 nanoseconds, so 8 billionths of a nanosecond. So this is a technology that was being quite successful. It's free, it's open source, but some people say, and we could claim that an open source technology is as successful as the quality of its community of developers and users. So how engaged they are, how strong is that community? And so that's what motivated us to create, and this is what I'm working on now, the White Rabbit collaboration, which is going to be a global community around this open source technology, involving any possible stakeholder, from universities, national laboratories, companies that are developers, companies that are providers of timing, users, and so forth. So we're really gathering everybody together around this community. And in that context, I will be the community coordinator of the collaborator once it launches at the beginning of next year. And of course, in that role again, I would be communicating a lot and trying to enhance that communication flow between all stakeholders, understanding what are the needs, how they want to shape the technology, how they can work together, and using this platform we are creating to really trigger new subset of collaborations and projects. So again, in that aspect, I would not be working from the technical side, but in contact with technical people. But facilitating and within a focus on communication. And that's myself. In the conference we went last year with a very discreet booth, a little promotional t-shirt explaining to a delegate from a company what we wanted to do and trying to convince him to join the collaboration. So with this, I've done a quick overview, and I leave it open for questions. If you have questions now, it might be better than at the end, but if not, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Amanda. A very interesting journey you have shown us about your own life as a science communicator, and this is very inspiring, especially for those of you out there who also want to embark on a journey like Amanda did, or also as Bianca is doing right now. Amanda, you have to leave us shortly, so we can take questions now for Amanda. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and we can give you the option to speak directly to her. Otherwise, you can also send your questions to us, and we would be happy to forward them to Amanda. But I see like we have a hand raised, so let's see. We have Vidya Devi, and also we have Adarsh. We'll just give you the option to talk. You can now pose your questions directly to Amanda. Start with Vidya Devi. Okay, she's not responding. So what about Adarsh Parashuram? Okay, maybe that was just to say hi. Sometimes you can also raise your hands to say hi. Then hi back to you. Thank you. Yeah, say hi back. And I would say then with this, we say thanks so much, Amanda, for joining us. And we look forward. Oh, okay, we have one. There's one hand. Maybe let's see if we get a question to Amanda. Rosa.
Hello, Rosa.
No, sorry, that was a mistake.
No worries. Okay, so then if you have any questions, yes, Samrat said send them over, and then I can see. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much, Amanda, and wishing you a very nice afternoon in Geneva.
Thank you. I'm very happy to have participated, and it sounds very interesting, the Science Lab. So participate and good luck with it.
Thank you. And you gave
thank you.
And you gave the keyword for our next presenter speaker, the Science Slam. Now, who can talk more about the Science Slam than somebody who has been there with us, who has done the journey of the Science Slam, who has reached the final and was very close of winning it, and was really a very enriching time with Sarbajit we had last year in Chennai, and he's right now just moved to Paris to start his PhD. He will tell a bit about himself shortly. But Sarbajit, very warm welcome to you again. So happy that you could make it, and please tell us a bit more about your journey and experience with the Science Slam, and what are the benefits of such a competition, and where do you see, like, how has it helped you, and what tips you have for someone who's interested to join this Science Slam competition. Thank you, Sarvaji.
Right, right. So, am I audible, Comrade?
Yeah, perfectly.
Yes, all right. So thank you so much, Comrade, for calling me here and having me here. It's really a great opportunity on my part. So I don't have a presentation, but what I will do, I will speak my hearts aloud, and hopefully I think I can communicate something from my end to your end. So that's what I'm going to do. So currently I'm a PhD student at École Polytechnique in France. I'm doing my PhD in physics. And I came to know about Euraxess when I was in India, when I was doing my master's. And this is again for everyone. So if you are interested about Euraxess, or not just the Science Slam, so the Euraxess organizes several events apart from the Science Slam. So if you want to know about them, I'm sure all of you will find something of interest. So if you want to know about them, the various social media platforms of Euraxess is a very good place to start. And they have a very good social media outreach as well, so you can know about them. And particularly in my case, I came to know about the Science Slam via emails. So if you are from an institution where you get emails for communication, then you might also look for an email specifically mentioning about the Science Slam. So this is where I came to know about it. And then I thought, well, it's a good idea to participate because, I mean, I always had a knack for science communication, but always my role was only as a passive audience and not an active participant when it comes to science communication. So I enjoyed watching various YouTube videos on several stuff in physics and mathematics. YouTube channels like Veritasium, Vsauce, they're one of my favorite YouTube channels. I grew up watching them, but I never really did something on my part. I never really did something so that other people can become the audience. I was only an audience on my level. So I thought that the Science Slam is a very good opportunity so that I can also do something so that other people can see. And that's how I thought of enrolling into this competition. So I liked it so much that I not only enrolled once, but I ended up enrolling twice. So I have participated both in 2021 and in 2022. I have been a finalist in both of the years. And let me say, this is a very refreshing experience. So in 2021, it was an online event because there was COVID pandemic at that point of time. In 2022, we had the finals set up, like Shomrat said, in Chennai, in offline mode. And that was very, very refreshing experience altogether. Because trust me, when you see people in front of you, when you interact with your fellow participants, it is a completely different ballgame altogether. Yes, online is fun, but offline has a different taste in its own. So, like I said, my main motivation was to play my role in science communication. And of course, there is a lucrative Europe trip that you get to do if you are the winner. But then again, it's not always the first prize that you should aim for, because I'm sure there are several things that you will end up gaining, and you will have a lot of things in your bag that you can go back with. So that's what I would like to say. Now, the perks of participating in the Science Slam. So first of all, networking. So what you do is you meet several other fellow researchers and who are okay. Okay. All right. So there are several fellow researchers with whom you can interact with. So also the participants that you come across, there will be several opportunities that will open for you. So let me share something which happened with me. So back in 2021, when I was doing the slam, I came across one of the fellow participants who also used to run a foundation for science communication. And I got in touch with her, and we also held some interesting interactive sessions with school children, and it was a very fun thing to happen. So that's how you build networks. So science communication is something via which, especially via the Science Slam, which is organized by the Euraxess, you can build a very good network. The second thing is when you go there, if you get a chance to go into the finals and if you're a part of it, then what you will end up with, you'll also learn about a lot of opportunities which are there in Europe with regard to research. So I'm not sure that all of us, we are very aware of what are the several opportunities, what are the several fellowships that you get, what are the different programs which happen in Europe. So this Euraxess platform is a very good place so that you can go there and you can learn about these opportunities so that even you can apply for maybe your PhD or for your postdoc or something like that. So this is a place where, you know, you'll get to know about these things from the experts themselves. So you'll have people coming from several European countries, and they'll tell you about these several possibilities and opportunities in their own countries. So I think that's a very wonderful opportunity that one can get. And of course, making friends. So when you participate, what you do is you end up making very good friends, and I'm sure you're going to have a very good time. So like Arnav said, today one of the major problems that people deal with is mental health. So when I went there and I participated in the offline event, it was so refreshing, right? So people coming from various backgrounds and people having fun together, you can hang out with friends. And we really had a great time with Arnav and Priyanka and Shomrat, right? We had dinner together, and we also had lunch together. So it was a very wholesome experience altogether. And let me tell you that in your, very tiring experience of research, where you have to do experiments, or if you're into theory, you have to do calculations, it is very important to do something so that you get refreshed, you get energized. So Science Slam, I think, is something which does the exact thing that you'll be looking for. So in my opinion, so again, the Euraxess Science Slam does a wonderful thing in this regard. And now coming to a few tips that you might want to remember when you are participating in this competition. So the first thing is, which also I believe Arnav mentioned, is to know the medium in which you are, in which you are delivering your content. So an online medium is completely different. An offline medium is again completely different. So if you're participating, if you're sending your videos via online, if you're making a video, then of course you won't be able to interact with the audience, right? So you have to keep that in mind and make your video in a particular format. If you are doing something offline, of course, you have access to a PPT and you can show slides, but then you can't have fancy texts popping up on your left and right hand side. You can't have emojis which are going, around the way. And so you can't do things like that. So again, you have to build your presentation in a particular format again. So online and offline are very different formats in their own kind, and you have to keep that in mind. Now, again, what I believe is super important is the story. So whether your video is heavily edited or not, that's not really important at all. Whether you put in a lot of singing, dancing, a lot of acting into it, or whether you use a lot of props, everything depends on the story that you're trying to tell to the audience. So the story is very important. So focus on the story. That's the single most important factor that you think that you must be focusing upon. So once you have the story, then find out what you can do to complement the story. So for example, I remember in one of the, I think in 2022, when we were having the live finals, one of the participants, she used Kathak, Indian classical dance form, to showcase her research in biology. So that's again a very different novel idea, right? So her story was centered around Indian classical dance and how it was related to her research. And so she used mudras, Kathak mudras, and she explained her science to the audience. So this is how she used dance as a tool to complement her storytelling. Then, of course, many of the participants used acting. So they put out a small skit. They played characters, they acted, and that's how they complemented with the storytelling. So your skill, your separate skill, be it singing, be it dancing, be it playing an instrument, or be it acting, or just good orational skills, it depends on how you are planning to tell the story and how that complements well with the story. Don't just put things for the sake of putting into it, right? So I mean, it should not be a typical old-fashioned Bollywood movie where a song just comes in because there has to be a song, right? So if there is a need for it, put it. Otherwise, I think it's perfectly fine. And the second most important thing is, well, some of us may be working in a field which is very, very specific. So if you want to explain that to the general audience, maybe you have to explain 10 different things prior to that, right? So it's not a very convenient thing to do. So probably pick up something, one small part in your research. Don't include too many things. Otherwise, what will happen is you might have a time crunch and you will end up confusing people, and also you'll end up confusing yourself. So that's not something that you would want to do. So pick up something. It can be also a general topic as such, not particularly pertaining to some very specific field, about some very specific theorem or something very specific. It can be something which is very general, like quantum technologies, something which is very general, right? So you can talk about them. And I think that way people can also relate to your story. And even on your part, it is slightly easier for you to communicate your science. And I believe that will be all from my side. Priyanka already has a beautiful presentation on how you could plan your slam on a whole. And don't worry about how well you will perform and what you're going to do on the main day, because Arnab and Priyanka, they are going to be your mentors. And I can say from personal experience, not once, but twice, that they're wonderful mentors. They will give you the exact guidance that you would be. And if you incorporate them into your slam, you're going to do wonders. So really looking forward to all the slams that would come up this year. And I think Euraxess already publishes them in their YouTube channels. So this is where you can also go and look up the previous year science slams, so you get an idea about how things happen. And I'm really looking forward to viewing some of the slams this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarbajit. And it was really nice to listen how you reflected on your own journey with the Science Slam. And also you mentioned, our YouTube channel where you can see some of the videos of previous Science Slam finalists. And I would definitely recommend you to check out Sarbajit's videos. They have been really excellent and very creative and very inspiring. But it doesn't have to be the most fancy video presentation. We're looking for someone who really has talent in communicating science. And this brings me now to our next and final speaker of today, Priyanka Dasgupta. She herself has been part of the Science Slam as a finalist and as an eventual winner in 2017. And then she also embarked on the journey as a professional science communicator, which took her, to different places. And now she's currently joining us from Geneva. And Priyanka, now please tell us a bit, how is it to be a professional science communicator? And, also what tips you have for our potential candidates who want to join the Science Slam this year. Over to you.
Thank you, Samrat. Thank you so much. And after the fantastic presentations already by Arnab, Amanda, and Sarbajit, everyone has covered a lot of ground. I will now engage and go into how you can then start if you're interested in science communication of wherever you are at the moment. I will take a moment to quickly acknowledge the questions that are coming up in the chat. So I see them, we see them. Maybe I will try to take up some of them during my presentation, so when it comes organically. Otherwise, after my session, we will have the question answer session where we can answer those. All right. So with that said, let me quickly share my presentation, which thanks to Arnab's many presentations of how to do a good presentation, I have done versions where it's gotten better and better, hopefully. So I am assuming it's visible now, and thanks. So I will proceed. So again, as I said, my journey in science communication was very accidental. And so what I will do right now is share my own journey and then use that as an example of how you too can start wherever you are right now. If you're interested in science communication as something you want to explore, or if you want to see that as a future career opportunity. And at the end, I will share some tips and tricks for the video. Of course, Arnab and Shabjit have already covered lots and lots of good material. If you haven't had the chance to view that, the recording of this video webinar will also be available later, which you can view. But so now, without further ado, let's go into it. Me So of course, when you're starting a career, it's nice to present a portfolio. Mine, however, started in a very different way. I was studying zoology in Delhi University. I had no idea about science communication or whether this existed as a field at all. I was a student in Delhi University studying bachelor's in zoology with my whole career mapped out, that now bachelor's, then master's, then PhD, then maybe professor or more research. And then while I was doing my master's in zoology and I was doing genomics and metagenomics, one day a professor, I think it was also a professor, and then along with him came the head of DST, Department of Science and Technology in India, who came to visit for a talk similar to this. And they talked about science communication and opened up opportunities of what a person could do in science communication. And at that time, there was this scheme or this project in India called the science train. So that train went across all of India, which was a mobile science exhibit, and people explained concepts of physics, chemistry, biology to people of all different audiences, different geographical locations, speaking different languages. So it went through each and every state of India, embarked on few cities in every state, and it took like 10 months or 11 months to cover the whole of India. And I got a chance to volunteer there for 2-3 months, and I had to speak to so many people, who 30 to 40,000 people in a day. And I covered the part where it went through South India. So I did not know all the languages either, but I had to pick them up and explain. So that went to show of how important it is to have to know your audience, to sometimes speak in languages they know. Otherwise, also try and make your science that you are communicating as accessible to them as possible. One of the questions I think in the chat was, I think Apeksha had that question of how to tailor your content to certain people to make them understand better. And she gave the example of explaining safety rules or do's and don'ts for COVID or during COVID vaccination or to prevent that. And indeed, you have a point that sometimes tailoring your conversation to certain audiences can help, which is why knowing your audience is important. If I talk in a very scientific language to a person who is just finishing 8th grade, I am not sure I will be able to convey the same message to him as to a university professor who has done a degree in vaccination, degree studying vaccinations, right? So in that form, yes, I will pick on this a little bit later as well. But coming back to where I started from, that gave this experience of going on that train, explaining science to so many people, gave me an idea of how important communication can be in science, and especially where science and scientific information affects our everyday life. There was an example of COVID, this pandemic. All of us needed to not necessarily understand exactly how the virus works, but at least to the extent that it affects us, to know that it spreads by contact, it can spread through waterborne areas or airborne areas, and that we must take precaution to be safe from it. And which led me to believe that, okay, this is what I want to do. I found my calling, that I want to keep communicating science. And so after my master's in zoology, which of course is also a huge career change at that point, that I am communicating, so I am going for a full academic career, and I had never thought of science communication. So at that point, I had to take the decision whether I go into communication as a full-fledged career or keep studying my academic goals. It was not that I didn't like research, but at that point, I am glad I had the strength in me to change my direction. And I know for a lot of you as well, studying in India, it might be difficult to change careers to something that is unconventional. And I'm not saying that leave your research and go into science communication. It's not that. It's if you enjoy your work, if you enjoy your research. One, you can either engage in trying to communicate it outside your lab, or if you find that you do find much more thrill or enthusiasm in communicating science itself, you can have that option to pursue it as a full-fledged career. So I did the FAME lab. I did some competitions around science communication. As I said, I had not much idea. So the best way to learn is attend webinars such as this, go to competitions and just practice. Fail or succeed, you learn. All through that you learn. And in doing so, I came across the Euraxess India Science Slam, which was a great experience through all the mentoring, also from Arnab and the others who were there at that time. And then the workshops that were held, all of that gave me the confidence to know that, okay, this is something that I can do. This is something that can help me communicate science better to people. Throughout that, I was fortunate enough to win that, and that led me to get a trip to Europe, which will also be the prize for this year's Science Slam winners. And there I got to meet a lot of professors, a lot of different people from industries in different technology areas, and got to understand a bit more of how they use science communication, or what scope there is for employment opportunities in their respective institutions or research centers and whatnot. And following this, I went on to first work in Gujarat as a science communicator, as a formal science communicator for another Government of India project, where we used to go in vans, we used to camp in like various different villages, and all across we went. And our main objective was to not to break the rote learning. So we used to explain practical models of scientific concepts. So instead of telling exactly that so this is how something works, like you repeat the formulas in your books, instead of that, we showed a practical example with balls, balloons, whatnot. And it was such a joy engaging people, and you could see the sparkle in the eyes of people, that once you actually show them experiments or relate the scientific jargon to everyday things that they know about, they will understand it. And similarly, I continued that, and then I got a chance to go to Belgium for another internship in science communication. And after that, recently, I thought that I should study it a bit more formally. So I studied it in London in Imperial College. I did another master's, and there I got a lot of opportunities to work with other science groups. So I got some opportunities to work in Museum of London, create some science workshops for different for kids. Then in King's College London, I was a tutor for a science communication course. I was also a tutor, one of the many student tutors for a science communication course. Then I was a editor for a college magazine. Then I did some internships, and then most recently I was at CERN as a communications and marketing fellow for the last 3 years. And now very, very, very recently, just 2 months ago, I moved into another role for another international organization here in Geneva, which does international standards for electrotechnical systems, processes, or equipment. And I am a communications officer there. So there's a new challenge now to explain about electrotechnical standards to a general audience. But I am enjoying my role. And having said that, now, what can you do? What scope do you have if you're looking forward to a career in science communication? You can have different work styles. Some of you may be very good in writing. So that can be a part that you explore. You don't necessarily need to be able to sing or dance, but you can have a very keen insight into presenting difficult topics in everyday language, or in a language that is understood by a certain audience, and you can keep growing that. Or you may be very good at art, but in that art as well, so there's a there's infographics, there's posters, there's a lot of there's a lot of art that goes into a lot of science communication as well. Everywhere, somewhere, whether it be a multimillionaire research funded organization, or it can be a very niche everyday school, everywhere we rely on pictures or videos to communicate our science. And especially with social media, it's a very visual medium. So if you think that that is one of your talents, you can then also mold that in the direction of using that talent to explain the science in a simple way. So again, yes, so you can do writing or editing. Then another way to engage in science communication is projects and events. So a lot of people in this industry do communications management, digital media promotion, social media, as I said, and public engagement and outreach. So all of these are places where there are employment opportunities. And then also the creatives part, as I said, for audio and video editing or doing style guides. And then of course, there's also radio, the audio part of it. And then policy and research. So Amanda, what she mentioned when she was in the UK Commission and doing research for politicians to explain the science to them so that they can take legitimate policy decisions on it, is also a very interesting area, which if you want, you can explore. So having set the stage, now all of this is great, all of this is fantastic, but where do you start? I thought I would explain that using a classic story. And here, if some of you might recognize it, it's the Lord of the Rings visual that I've taken. And why I say that is because every story has a start, middle, and end, right? So here in the case of this story, for those of you who don't know, what happens is there is the protagonist's interest in a ring. And to get that ring to a certain place, or the protagonist and his band of travelers go on an unexpected journey. And the objective of that, the third part, is to end evil reign. But in your case, the same thing would be that you are at the beginning where your interest is that you want to explore SciComm as a career, right? And then to go on this journey, you want to explore other options of what you can do. And finally, you want to be a communicator so you can you can use science to end all evil. But basically what that means is you have to figure out where you want to get to. And to do this, you can start backwards. So you start with the end point. You start with where you want to get to. So you can look at, say, job positions, or say you find someone doing a job that you think is interesting and see what their job title is or what they are doing. And so then you work backwards. So for instance, if you say, I want to be the editor of Nature India or a science magazine in India. So then you see what qualifications that person has or what experience that person has. And then you explore your options to get to those places. So, and of course, it's never a straight path. You can try out different things, attend workshops, seminars, webinars, competitions. And this, you've already taken a great first step in attending this webinar, where the main thing you are doing is gaining more information. You are learning more about the world and you're stepping outside of your bubble. So congratulations on that. And then put in the work. Attending is one part. Then you have to keep developing your skills. So the tips and tricks you learn now, you use them to practice just by yourself, if not much. Or you can keep putting it out to the world by, let's say, entering this competition and trying to work on it. Then, of course, there are more formal ways to go about it. You can do courses on LinkedIn or other places, or you can find what colleges or institutions offer any diplomas or degrees. And then, of course, apply, try and fail, or succeed. So remember that if you get a rejection or a failure from somewhere, and if you're not, let's say, selected for this video, it's not the end of the world. You keep doing, and that's the best way to learn. And repeat that cycle, learn, practice, and repeat, and keep doing that till you keep succeeding on each rung of the ladder. And then finally, as I said, you arrive at where you are right now. So all you have to do is take the next few steps. You've already taken the first step and now you keep doing that. And so, yeah, so I went over the portfolio, the scope, and now you have to begin your journey. So to begin your journey, if the next step that you think you want to do is to participate in the Euraxess Euraxess India Science Slam, some other tips and tricks on top of what already Arnav and Shobjit have shared are: first, tell a story. I think they've told it many times during their presentations, and I cannot emphasize enough how much this is important. Tell a story. We are all people who love listening a story, be it a movie, be it a radio podcast, be it anyone at parties telling you stories. You want to listen to stories. If someone just goes on blabbering about their presentation and their life, you are not interested. It's not a presentation. Again, something that Arnav and Shobjit also said, it's not a presentation. Rules of presenting something. You can sing, dance, but if not dance or sing, you can also just give it a bit more edge by changing the way you present it or adding metaphors or using other examples. Stick to the rules. If the entry rules, so you can find all the entry rules on the Euraxess website, Euraxess India website for the science communication webinar, science slam, sorry. But if the rules say 10 minutes, your limit is 10 minutes, don't make it to 20 minutes. If the rules say 5 minutes, don't make it 10 minutes. I am sure you will have a lot to say. And once you get excited about science, sometimes it's hard to stop talking, but you must stick to the rules. Having said that, hopefully I am doing okay on time. I should end shortly. And then avoid jargon. So if you have something to say or a difficult science topic to explain, don't use jargon or complex words, because I, being from a different field, maybe will understand nothing of it. So for instance, if you have to say, I like eating C12H22O11 in a frozen mixture of a colloid of butterfat molecules in a water-based solution. Will you understand anything? No. But if I say the same thing in a more everyday language, I can just say, I like ice cream. So this is exactly what I said it, although in a very simple way of saying that water in a sugar solution when frozen can be ice cream, but you get the idea. And then pace yourself. If you have a video to prepare and you know that you have got 5 minutes or 10 minutes, don't fill it with information that can go on to 20 minutes. Fill it with information that you can say conveniently in 5 minutes. But that doesn't mean that you speak at a speed of 500 miles per hour, and then you try to fit all of that information. Select your 3 points or 4 points. I would say that you can use maybe 3 main takeaway points that you want to say. And as Arnav gave the triangle already in his presentation of the things that you must say, and pace yourself across that video so you get the points across clearly and effectively without rushing. Then the props and the experiments. If you use a model or a prop or animations in your story, please use them, as Shobjit said, to complement your story, to advance your story, not as a duplication of what you've already said. And as I said, the 3 takeaway points, and structure it accordingly. Give it a start, middle, and end. Or you can make it the first point, the second point, the third point, and a little conclusion. It helps give clarity also to the people who are listening to you. And you can check out the previous videos that are existing. Lighting is important. Now for the video, the technical aspects, try to place light in front of you so it falls directly on your face. Sound, again, very important. If we can't hear you, it always is a problem. And then animation and music can be your friend, but it's not the main hero of your slam. The main hero is always the science. So keep that. And then without thinking too much about it, think enough, prepare your slam and get better at it. But then don't think that, no, I will make it a perfect thing and submit next year. Submit, try this year. And then we work on getting it better. Okay. With that, I end my talk and welcome any questions if there are. I think we go into the question answer session now.
Thanks, Priyanka. Always really very nice to listen to you, and also very structured presentation. And thank you also so much for the tips you gave to the audience about, if they're interested to join the Science Slam and submit a video. Priyanka already said we could go now straight into the Q&A. So if there are any questions you have to our great speakers, you can address them now. You'll get a lot of kudos from the audience, all the speakers. Everyone was very happy with the presentations and the talks. But now we have still some minutes, and it would be great also to get you into the session. So if you have a question, you can just raise your hand, and we will give you the permission also to speak. That would be, I think, nicer way to communicate rather than writing your questions. But you also can, if you feel more comfortable in writing, then please do that.
Can I take one question which was asked on the chat by Dinesh about the communicating in different languages? And I think especially in India, I think that is very, very important. And honestly, wherever I have gone, I think there are excellent local initiatives that in Mumbai there are groups that do it in Marathi. The Tamil Nadu Science Foundation does a wonderful job. In Kolkata there are groups doing it in Bengali. So I am sure there are groups across India that are doing it in various regional languages, and I think that's really important because that is the best way to reach out to people across a country as large as ours and as diverse as ours.
Absolutely. And maybe just to build on that a bit more, I think also if you don't necessarily speak the same language, what you can do to communicate a certain thing to people who don't speak your language, maybe to connect with locals in that region and try to use them as grassroots influencers for your work, or if you want to get a certain thing across. Because as Arnab said, there is no dearth of people interested in communicating science, and you should not feel restricted about not speaking a certain language.
And there's no dearth of people interested in wanting to hear interesting stories in science. And often one simple thing is most of us in India are multilingual. We speak at least 2 if not more languages, and though science is increasingly done in English, I think it's perfectly okay to have slides in English but speak in a different language. And I think that's a big barrier, because often the biggest barrier is to try and translate the slide, and that is that's very difficult. And increasingly today it's okay to say electron and proton and whatever. I mean, as long as the verbs and the what is happening is being conveyed. So yeah. There was another question. Let me see if I can keep the Q&A. What's there in Q&A?
While you're taking that, I can take another one that I see
Can
right now.
UG and PG students be encouraged to participate in the Science Slam? Absolutely, absolutely. It's open to everyone.
Well, there's one thing, Arnab. You have to be on a master level, either MA, MSc, because it's also that you have to present the research you're working on, right? As a
Right.
UG.
Okay, sorry. So it's not. This one's not for the bachelors.
Yeah, it's not for the bachelors, but it's for everyone above 18 and pursuing either a master's or PhD, or like having a scientific research career, and that's one of the terms and
Your faculty
conditions.
can participate. Absolutely, we've had
Yes.
some amazing presentations by faculty.
Yeah. We also have a question, guys, regarding
many of these.
I have there's a nice question.
Questions are coming in faster than we can look at them.
Let me take one, Arnab. Let me take
go ahead.
one. During my presentation, how do you know that the audience is getting bored or not? Arnab, maybe you can take that.
Well, look at your audience, and I think you'll figure out if they're getting bored or not. I mean, if they're all busy typing away on their phones, then you know that they're not listening to you. But actually, which is why it's important to make eye contact with your audience often, so that you know that they're with you.
Yeah, and again, a bit more addition on webinars like this, where it's so difficult to view your audience. You might very well be on your phones while looking at it and trying to open other boxes. But a good way to gauge interaction is by the amount of questions coming in, or if or to maybe intersperse your presentation with slight questions or
Make it interactive.
cues. Exactly, make it interactive. So if you say, and this has an example of people who like ice cream. How many of you would like ice cream? And if you see some comments coming in, it means that your audience is still awake. If not, you know that you either don't have to speak that much, or you try to boost up the energy again.
Another question I want to take, as a researcher who wants to transit into science communication, what will be your best advice?
Priyanka should do this.
I would again re-emphasize that again, there is no perfect place to start. The important part is you start. You can go to a seminar, you can go to a webinar, you can apply for Euraxess Science Slam. But the important thing is that once you do that, you put yourself to test. While doing that, you will obviously go through that stage of trying to create something, which means that you will actually try to do something. And in that, you might get it right the first time, or it might take a few tries. So I would suggest that maybe either you can learn through this, or you can also get in touch with, let's say, once you see the speakers in these webinars or workshops. So workshops can be a great idea. And then try to do a bit of it yourself by speaking to the persons who can make that access available.
Do we take Chandana's question? It's a very interesting one on how do you get sort of resources for doing this. And are there philanthropic grants or other outreach grants? So it's a difficult thing. I mean, it's difficult, especially both even for people like us who are within a government setup. It's even harder if you're outside it, if you're a private person, trying to do things. Though I think today most of the professional science societies have outreach grants. I mean, the Royal Society of Chemistry, India Bioscience, most of these things, and even their Indian chapters, all have outreach grants. They're not very large. I'm not sure if you can hire your team on it, but at least they could help defray the costs for some events. And often our model is that if you're going to do something in a school somewhere, we are providing the science inputs and the speakers and everything, and we don't want anything, but just make sure that the local arrangements are covered wherever they are. So but it is, I agree, it is much more difficult to get funding for science outreach than it is to get funding for science, which is itself not easy.
I see another question by Apeksha, follow up on the languages part. So since we've already covered that, I can just finish on a clarification that she has asked, that how to balance in those non-native languages, or what they might expect, that if you use Hindi and then more people might be familiar with more English words, but if you use too many English words, it might seem emotionally distant. So, and how to balance that. So that's her question. I would suggest that again, it goes back to understanding your audience. A safe way to judge that is if you know your majority of your audience is going to be Hindi speakers, let's say, speak in Hindi. But then if you are also a Hindi speaker, if you are also bilingual, you can judge by what you know, maybe, or what you're more comfortable with as a starting point. So if I have to say TV, I will not go to a Hindi version of it because I myself don't know what TV means in Hindi. So I would keep it to saying TV. But then the bigger words of saying a bit more complex words and scientific language, and those again, you might try to use everyday examples again in Hindi to explain the situation or explain the concept to them. Now, if it's a language that you don't speak and you are thinking whether they will know TV or not, a good idea might be to speak to a local of that region and say, do you know these words? Just before your talk, if you have time, speak to us. There will be some organizer or whoever is organizing that seminar, webinar, talk, or whatever, or workshop in that region who has asked you to speak to that audience. That person must be an intermediary who speaks your language and their language. So clarify with them of what the audience might expect, and just try to get a assessment of what your audience is about.
Also, I mean, I must say from our experience that sometimes trying to be too much, if you use too much of what they call Shuddha Hindi or Manak Hindi, tends to be counterproductive, because, people actually, speaker has come very well prepared with things like Para Baigani Prakash or something, but people actually will call it UV only, they are used to the UV water purifier or something, and you will confuse them more. So sometimes it's probably okay to find this balance of all our languages are evolving and taking loan words for other languages. So it's perfectly fine to mix a few words.
Okay, I'm just looking at the watch and seeing it's 4:30 here. It means we have to come to an end. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the speakers and also the audience who has been with us here in large numbers until the end. So last words, last advice, encouragement to those who are maybe now thinking, oh, I should try it. I should join the Science Slam. Maybe it's really fun and I can learn something and I can have like some good time. So let's start with Arnab. Arnab, what would be your final words to our audience?
Given that we still have more than 100 people on this call, I would love to see 100 videos come in. And please remember, when the panel looks at the videos, we are not looking at how well it is done, how are the thing. A simple mobile phone, no cut paste is perfectly fine. You can just send it, because finally we are looking for, is there a story? And does this person have what it is to tell a story? After that, don't worry. We can help you, train you, and make sure that your final performance is going to be much, much better than what your video was. And, of course, sometimes you get a fantastic person like Saurabhjit who can not just act, but act as two different people. Just looking forward to lots of entries. And even if you don't enter the Science Slam, talk about your science wherever you are. You go to the market, you go to the thing, you meet somebody in the elevator, talk about what you do, whether it's science or not science. Communicating is what makes us human.
Thank you, Arnab. And Priyanka.
Yeah, Arnab has summarized it all. Just go ahead, submit your videos to this, and beyond this as well, take that first step. Go ahead, practice with the friends that you can hold captive, and start talking to them about science, and they can give you honest feedback and you can learn. Or generally, as I said, the people you meet, just talk about your work, and with that you can build not only connections, but you get to learn more about their perspective, and then you grow. And the other thing is, thanks to all of those people who've joined and commented so much on the webinar chat and engaged with us. It's very much appreciated from our side as well.
Thank you, Priyanka. And Sarbajit, final words.
Yes. I would say, don't think too much. Don't think whether, I will be able to participate really well in the correct format, whether, people will love what I'm doing, whether I'll win the first prize or not. Just forget everything. Participate, send in your videos. I'm sure the panelists will find something that is interesting. Even if it is not, the best thing that you've done by sending the video is that you've started. And it's a very famous quote. I think, all famous quotes are either given to either Einstein or Mark Twain. I don't know who said it, but the best thing to do is to start a process. That is what the famous quote is. So that's what I believe is very important, the most important thing to do. And I'm sure if you do it, then if you're lucky, if you get selected, then forget about the Europe trip. But what you're actually doing is you're signing up for 3 or 4 days of absolute fun and enjoyment. And I don't think you would, anyone in this conference or webinar would like to miss this for anything. So all the best to all of you who would be participating, to all the participants, and looking forward to beautiful and amazing videos. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarbajit. Very nice concluding words, and you ended it with a famous quote as well. And with this, I say thank you to all of you who have joined us. It was really nice, to have so many here and seeing how science communication is of interest to our research community. And of course, a big thanks to all our speakers today. And we're really hoping that now in the next days we will get some amazing videos from you guys out there. There's still time. The deadline is 20th of October. So now just take your take your mobile phone and start recording and send us something. Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.